Hello guys, this is the first video in a new series, which is a set of conversations between Eli and myself on information metabolism. Now, we did not initially plan to publish these discussions. The goal of our talks at first was simply to help Eli grasp information metabolism, which tends to be very theoretical, in a tangible way with concrete examples, in order to ground it to his personal experience. Now, since the goal initially wasn't to prepare this for an online audience, we tend to bounce around different topics without really keeping an audience in mind, but simply addressing a question from Eli's current place of understanding, which is fairly advanced to begin with. But if you have watched the information metabolism videos up to this point, then hopefully you should be able to follow along just fine. Now, one final note to make is that this first video starts rather abruptly in the middle of a topic, and that's because I suddenly decided to hit record on our talks after a couple had gone by because it was getting interesting. And it occurred to me that maybe it would be useful to people in the future to also listen in. And so, well, here we are. And well, with that said, let's begin.
Instead of thinking in terms of trying to find some harmony or symmetry between SN and abstract concrete, realize that almost instantly, at the same moment as we perceive an object, we are already generating an abstraction in our minds. So S is already abstracted. Only in animals is it not. Because they don't really, for example, an animal doesn't think to itself, apple. It actually just stays at the level of just something is in front of me. It's red, and they have an instinct that says, they don't even think. The instinct leads them to gravitate towards colorful things, and they know that it's a color that they favor, and then they just consume it without even having thought in the process. Having thought at all means it's abstract. So all thought is abstraction. Even the thought, an apple, is abstractions. So S is an abstract process. S starts at the rudimentary level of abstraction. That's one way to put it.
Yeah. Okay. S is abstraction. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all abstractions. So they are all high-level cortical processes that all start when abstraction occurs. And that's the difference between CT and other Jungian systems, where other Jungian systems S starts at the concrete sensory stimuli, and N starts at the thought. And I think that's part of the reason where there's a lot of misunderstanding of S and N types.
Sure. Okay. All right. This is definitely worth understanding. I hope you still, I'll be honest, as I usually try to be anyways. I'm not 100% clear on this. I'm getting closer to the truth. But what I'm trying to get to the 100% clear picture, which I'm not there yet, but I hope you're just patient with me. And of course, I will just keep on asking. I will search for it. Let's take a breather from E. And let's move on to, I think J perhaps will be slightly more straightforward. Maybe, perhaps.
Yeah, let's give it a shot. Let's give it a shot. So there's a fuzziness inherent to the P functions. Whereas the J functions, they like to cut and say, this is where something starts and where something ends. This is the definition, and this is not the definition, which is what we're doing here, you and me. So we're trying to delineate what defines something, what does not define something, right?
Yeah. The thing with the mind map kind of stuff, you have like a circle with an idea, then you have lines associating. Is there a good way to help humans think, associate, when like the perception association, is that a good way to map it, would you say?
Yeah, that is how everybody thinks in a way at some level. Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. That's how our neural networks are. So neural networks, which are modeling human brain activity itself, they're mimicking it. So a neural network in the computer science is trying to get at what human brains do. And they work very much like that as well. So you have ideas that are fuzzily connected to other ideas with stronger weights or weaker weights based on how close the ideas are together. So there's a proximity or a distance between ideas. And something like, for example, at some level, if you're thinking of a red apple, at some level your neurons are going to slightly fire up something like an orange basketball. An orange basketball is a little bit like an orange apple, 5%. So it's going to semi-activate in your brain like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And does the brain like rearrange itself? Does it sort of, I don't know, it's like in the neural network, it's like the brain rearrange itself so it's more like the clusters are closer together or something like that?
That's not something that I'm aware of. I don't know. I don't know, but I think it just, the highways get stronger. And I think that physically manifests in the neural pathways becoming thicker. I don't know if that means if they're far away in the brain itself, but they are closer to access in the same way that, say,
Sure.
if there's a freeway and the freeway can take you to one part of town in 5 minutes because the freeways are fast, then it actually is closer in terms of the time it takes to communicate.
Yeah, speed. Distance does not change. Speed changes.
Yeah,
So time changes.
exactly. Yeah.
So in a way, it's faster, which is what you're looking for because you're looking for speed and not distance.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's like yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Moving on to J. So you're talking about ignore the definition of heart and mind because I feel like that's a little bit vague. So I'm just going to straight up, you don't mind if I just straight up ignore those two terms?
Yep.
Because I feel like, so you're talking about like ethic in terms of you make decisions, like you make decisions, right? J is about making decisions, right?
Yeah.
So
At a
if
deeper level,
involves
it's actually about the decision making comes after you delineate. So if you delineate, you've internally made a decision, even though, let's say, no decision has been explicitly stated. So, for example, if you meet somebody, and in the first 20 seconds, you come away from it feeling that guy's a jerk. You just feel it in your psyche. You don't say it. It's a decision that was made cognitively by you marking the person off in a certain category. You've decided that they're a jerk to you. You decided not to hang out, not to be their friend. So decision, you're right, decision, but decision has to be understood more broadly as in how we demarcate information and we decide if it's into this box or if it's into that box. That's the decision that's happening. Yeah.
Okay, so what's the name of that verb then? Categorization?
Yeah, or I like to use delineation. So delineation, that's what I like to use.
Yeah. And can you tell me why you use this word? Like this etymology, I guess the etymology of you choosing this word.
Yeah.
What's delineating? What's
Right.
deleting?
Delineating is to lineate is to draw a line. Delineate is to draw a line between two things. So it literally means to put a line somewhere so that you have the left side of the line and the right side of the line. So it's making different boundaries or borders between two ideas. Here, let me give you an example. So this is a perfect classic example of the difference between perception and judgment. So literally perception, it literally perceiving inquires, say, the optic feed, and you see a spectrum of colors, right? Now, strictly speaking, there are millions of colors, and there aren't really any set categories of colors. We just decide, we put lines somewhere and we say, this is where this color ends and this is where this color starts, but it's a spectrum, right? So that is this is a delineation. So here, for example, in this chart, let's say somebody decided the cutoff point is so much distance, and then we're just jumping to another color and another color. So these are delineations, chopping up things into bits, compartmentalizing.
Yeah. Is it partitioning or is it partitioning? I know these words are not the words you're using. Is it partitioning or like separation, but didn't at all? Or, I don't know.
It's distinguishing. That's what I would say, distinguishing. Yeah. So it's distinguishing between right and wrong, red and purple, between and it gets political too. For example, even borders of states, where does this border of Mexico start and where does America begin? J is the one that says you're American or you're Mexican or you're Canadian. These are abstract borders that are placed on data in order to organize the world.
Yeah. So you're creating categories pretty much, right?
Yes. Category creation.
You're creating category. You're pretty much partitioning the entire sample space into partitions.
Yeah.
And then you make this, that you choose, the choice of that partition is a decision, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So it doesn't even start with, in order to make a decision, you need to have choices in the first place.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you can't even make choices. Yeah.
exactly. Oh, I love the way you put that. So in order to make decisions, you have to have choices. And in order to make choices, you have to partition. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So J takes care of partitioning and then choosing. No.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's very good. Partition. What about if you just partition? Is that J or not completely J? If you just delineate, is that just like part of J or just not completely what J does?
Okay, the part that partitions is more JI. JI, and then the JE is more the external choice making. Yeah. So JI is the one that internally, introspectively cuts up reality into this is that. But then JE says, I'm gonna do this or I'm gonna do that. It acts on the choices. Yeah.
I thought JI chooses. No? JI chooses. JI has, I like this, I like that.
Oh yeah, but internally it has a resonance or non-resonance to something. It depends on what we call a choice. Again, a choice can just be internal, or a choice can be an action upon the world, right? So it depends on what we want to call a choice. But if we want to say a choice is simply just arriving internally at a position, then JI does that. Yeah, JI is about defining things, and that's why it's focused on identity. So for example, JI would say, who are you? Who am I? This is why JI tends towards produce individualists who are like, well, no, I am this and that. I am so and I am a snowflake. The snowflake syndrome is actually JI, contrary to the Myers-Briggs thinking. Very idealistic thinking about one's identity. Identity obsession is JI. Now, identity obsession when it comes to oneself is JI, but identity obsession in regards to the nature of objects is also JI. So if I say, I am this, you are that, that's one kind of JI. But also, this object is this object is that, is also JI. JI is judging the nature of, or the essence of each object and putting it into essence boxes, so to speak.
Okay. Hang on a second. What JI you're saying is doing is, JI is creating categories, right?
Yes.
Is that delineating, right?
Yeah.
Creating categories. So how did we jump from delineation to what were you said, like
Identity?
creating an identity? Yeah. Can you walk me through the middle steps?
Yeah, of course. So let's use an example. Let's say that you're observing a person. You're walking in the mall and you observe a person. And based on the kind of clothes they're wearing, the shoes, the hoodie, the way they're wearing their hair, you're like, oh, that's a hipster. You might say to yourself, that's a hipster. Yeah. So there, for example, identity is being labeled or slapped onto the object simultaneously as you're delineating what the object is. So you see, delineating is identifying, and identifying is identity. So it's about isness. What is it? When you define what it is, you're giving it an identity, and that is a kind of identity obsession that JI has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're looking at like you have your vision, right? You have like your vision, and you're looking at this person, and you judge. You're looking at the clothes they're wearing. You're like, oh, this person, based on his attributes, I've delineate him from other people or all the people in the world that I've seen in some way, and they are put into a category. He's a hipster. You put him into the category, and that's identification, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry if I'm just repeating that to you, but
it's fine.
Yeah. Sometimes you're not creating a category, but just because you've already created the category. You're just putting things into categories, right?
Yes. You only have to create them once, and then you have them, right?
Yeah. But you can have also multiple identity, right? Obviously.
Yeah, of course, in different ways. A woman could be a daughter, but also a mother and then a wife, and you could be something at work and something at home and multiple things. Or your ethnicity could be one identity and your career could be another one, all kinds of things.
Yeah. Cool. And that's what JI does.
Yes. And that's why JI tends to be very nuanced, subtle in its word choice and meticulous in its word choice, because it's very careful to delineate properly between things.
Yeah.
So in the more connoisseur sense, you can imagine a wine taster. You can distinguish the kind of taste that something has, the kind of color, the kind of texture, and you say, this is this kind of texture, this is this kind of color, this is this kind of flavor, because you have different categories in mind.
Yeah. So it likes to be precise, right? That's what you...
Exactly. So JI is precise, and the only way to be precise is to have categories that are thinner categories, that something fits into a higher resolution in your categorization.
Yeah. More lines, more partitions, right?
Yeah, more partitions, and then you can be precise. You're only as precise as your partitions, and the JI leap.
Why?
So say that again.
Why could AI want to be precise?
It has a fear of imperfection. So it wants to avoid making mistakes. As for the why of all the functions, like I said, is about their libido. What do they want? And JI wants to avoid imperfections.
Okay, so sorry, one sec. I think I'm going to ask a question which will help me to understand. So I understand the purpose of P. I think, I don't know if I'm right in saying this. P is about building a world view, right?
Yeah.
And how it does that is through, like, it's not just about PI, which is what controls the worldview, but you need PE to build it, right? You need PE to build PI, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
And so it's basically about information. It's about information. It's about what's going on, pretty much, right? Something like that, right?
Yes.
What's the purpose of J?
The purpose of J is to understand and act on the world accordingly. Actually, they both have very similar purposes in the sense that, now I believe that we have this left and right hemisphere playing this dance between each other, partially because there are two complementary ways for us to understand the world. I operate through the framework of Ian McGilchrist, who, I don't know sure if you know him, but he believes in the left and right brain complementarity, where we can understand the world as a probabilistic sphere in which we move dynamically, or as a set of rules in which we try to understand. I'm jumping too many steps here. I apologize for that. But the essential point is that both systems do something that the other does not do, and we gain a broader understanding of the world when we combine the two, and they share information back and forth from each other. And that gives us the best sort of view of the world. Weirdly enough, even perception, which is trying to just map out the entire world, you can't do it without judgment. Judgment helps perception do its task, and vice versa.
Okay. Yeah. You know why you use that example of 3D scanning a room?
Yeah.
That really helped me to understand PE and PI. Do you have an example for JE and JR?
I'm glad that helped. Yeah, that's a very clear example. It's literally what it does, I think. For the J system, I have to find the graphic. So did you see you said you saw the 3 metabolism videos so far, right?
Yeah.
Okay. There is in the metabolism of, I believe it's the last one, of PI.
Yeah.
I mentioned in the beginning that it's a bit like a software program, right? So the example I use in that video is flowcharts with conditions. So here, for example, It says, I literally just pulled this one off, so I haven't looked at it yet, but let's look at it together and I'll explain. So you start, place the toaster on the table. That's an instruction. Plug in the toaster to power, turn the toaster on, and then push the lever down. Wait until the toaster is ready. Is the bread brown enough? No. If no, then it loops you back down. Push the lever again. Wait. If not, once it is brown enough, yes. So there's like these conditional gates if this condition is
Yeah.
not met, it reroutes you in this way. If it is met, it goes this way. So they're almost like transistors, I want to say. So there's two elements to this. There is the delineation of the steps. That's one part of it, or even just the elements, each of these elements. And then there is the causal flowchart.
Elements, sorry? What elements?
Like these little, in this case, they are these little shapes here.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
And then there are the causal rules. So the causal rules are the if, then, else, or while, for. These are the rules connecting the elements together, right?
Okay, so you're talking about the lines, right?
If,
Are you talking about the arrows?
Yeah, the arrows, lines. Yeah.
Or even if arrows without yes or no if statement, it's just like a sequence, right? Sequential, that's still JE, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas JI would just be the thing in the bubbles, right?
Yes. The defining the elements themselves. Yeah. Understanding reality in a way that is delineated into distinct things is JI. And then the way that those distinct things causally interact, that's JE. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Moving between states, right? JE is.
Yeah.
Like the movement in states, the movement between different categories.
Yeah. So let's give an example. Let's say that you're in a tough neighborhood in I don't know, Brooklyn, I don't know, to stereotype, and you're in some alley, and then your JI notices and says, oh, I don't know, that's a gangster or that's a thug, right? And then JE says, walk away. Or
Yeah.
So identification by JI, identity, remember, identity is JI, identification is JI, gives you that creates the flow chart in the sense that it gives you the conditions from which you can run the program, gives the conditions or parameters from which you can execute the rules.
Okay. Can you explain what's a condition in this example? What's a condition and what's a parameter in this flowchart example?
So the conditions is the condition would be you're in an alley alone with a gangster in front of you. That's the state of being. That's the place you find yourself in, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then the what do you do about it is the JE is what is the proper action to take when you're in such a situation. So JE is do, right?
In alleyway. And what's a parameter in this example? I'm just trying to understand every single word. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm using these as synonyms. Conditions or parameters.
Okay, they're the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And J is, if in this, what to do, yeah.
Yeah.
What else, how does JE decide? Does JE just decide, for example, in an alleyway, run away from danger? This is danger, run away from danger. Does JE rely on something else to make this decision, or does JE just do it on its own? Like seeking pleasure, avoiding pain. Is that JE, what JE does, or is that something else?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Maybe you can reframe it in a different way.
Sure. So JI would say, oh, this is a dangerous situation, something like that. You're walking on the street alone, and you're three guys with knives walking towards you.
Yeah.
And you identify something like, oh, I'm in possible danger coming through. Then JE would be like, what do I do?
Yeah, maybe you want to fight back. Maybe if you're strong enough, you want to beat them up. Or maybe you want to away. Right. There you have options depending on. So it depends on your conditions. Are you rested? Are you strong? So JI will also give you your parameters. So there's an if then. They're like, if I can take them on, if I'm stronger than them, then the loop will go somewhere else. Maybe you can tell them to back off. But if you're not, if they're bigger than you, for example, if they're twice your size, then you'll probably want to run away. The actions you should take differ depending on the conditions of things. Yeah.
Sure. But there's a sort of the ultimate goal of, I guess, seeking pleasure, right? Preserving your life, right?
Yes.
Like whatever JE does, it's like the ultimate, like whatever choice he makes, there's a gravitation towards I want to survive and I want to.
Yeah.
That part, is that still JE or that's something else? Like the goal, like as a human, I want to feel respected or something as a human. I want more water, or I want to be safe. That ultimate goal, because JE guides you towards the goal, right?
Mm.
But the goal itself, is that still JE? You know what I'm trying to say? If you think to yourself, oh, I want to be healthy, what's the function that's responsible for making that decision of I want to be healthy?
That's not just a one function. That's a holistic choice. That's a holistic choice of you as an individual. So that's not one function doing it. That's your ego. If any function, that's your ego.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, so that I want to be healthy. That's not specifically JE, is it?
No, JE tells you how. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. So in the same example, I want to be safe. That's not JE talking. JE is just telling you, like, okay, you want to be safe. I'm going to show you how to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the ego. It's the you. It's the I. Yeah. So you can think of yourself as you are the ego, and then JE is like your CEO of your company. Like you're the president of the company. But JE is like your CEO that actually, or like your army general that does things, and then JI is your diagnostician that tells you. Anyway, you could have a whole crew. PI and PE are also there, but you are the one that ultimately is in the car seat, in the front car seat, all the time.
Yeah.
They are tools for you.
But it's like it's like you're the board of directors. And Jay is like the C. You're telling them we want more profit. And he's let me try to get it somehow.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. It's better analogy.
That was good. Yeah. It's very interesting. Very interesting. Thanks, Olber.